The fire starter, Alex's path to early retirement. The corporate grind. The city skyline, a mosaic of steel and glass, was Alex's gilded cage. Every morning, the screech of the subway and the synthetic smell of the office coffee signaled the start of another decade-long sentence. He was 32, a mid-level manager with a respectable salary, and utterly exhausted. The quarterly reports, the pointless meetings, the relentless, incremental creep of responsibilities that stole his evenings and weekends, it all felt like a life lived on fast-forward toward someone else's destination. He calculated that he wouldn't be financially free until he was 65, a prospect that filled him with dread, not ambition. The consumer treadmill kept spinning. A slightly better car, a marginally larger apartment, and credit card bills that ensured he remained a compliant, dedicated employee. He knew there had to be an alternative, a hidden door in the labyrinth of corporate life, but he couldn't see the handle. This deep, persistent dissatisfaction became his catalyst. One cold Tuesday, staring blankly at a spreadsheet, he typed a desperate question into his search bar: how to stop working forever. That single, impulsive query would change the entire trajectory of his life, pulling him out of the relentless gravity of the traditional path and towards something radically different, something he didn't yet dare to name. Discovering the spark. The search results were initially confusing, filled with buzzwords like geo-arbitrage and hustle. But buried beneath the noise, a singular, powerful concept emerged: FIRE, financial independence, retire early. Alex was instantly captivated. The concept wasn't about winning the lottery or becoming a tech mogul. It was a simple, aggressive strategy based on math, discipline, and intentional living. The core idea was straightforward: dramatically increase your savings rate, invest wisely, and accumulate a large enough investment portfolio that the returns alone could cover your annual living expenses. It was a lifestyle choice, a deliberate opting out of the societal expectation that mandatory work must consume the best years of your life. He devoured blogs, podcasts, and online forums, connecting with a global community of people who were actively pursuing this alternative timeline. For the first time in years, Alex felt a genuine rush of hope, realizing the financial goal wasn't merely retirement, but freedom. This wasn't about deprivation, but optimization, transforming wasted money and time into stored potential. He learned about the central rule that underpinned the entire movement, a calculation so simple yet so profound it felt like a secret key. This one rule, the fundamental principle of withdrawal rates, was the first hurdle he needed to fully grasp before he could chart his escape. The magic number, the 4% rule. The secret key was the 4% rule, the mathematical cornerstone of the FIRE movement. Alex learned that reliable, safe withdrawal from an investment portfolio is historically possible at a rate of 4% per year, adjusted for inflation. This means that to calculate his required magic number, he simply needed to multiply his desired annual expenses by 25. If he planned to live on $40,000 per year, he needed a portfolio of $1 million, $40,000 x 25. If his expenses were $60,000, his target was $1,500,000. This single, calculable figure provided a clear, measurable finish line, turning the abstract goal of retirement into a concrete, achievable target. The clarity was empowering. Alex immediately sat down to analyze his own spending. He realized his current annual expenses were nearly $80,000, driven by discretionary spending and a high housing cost. This meant his FIRE number was a daunting $2 million. The solution wasn't just to save, but to aggressively reduce his expenses to shrink the target. Every dollar cut from his annual budget reduced his ultimate goal by $25. This realization shifted his perspective from passive saving to active expense annihilation, making every budget item a strategic lever in his quest for early freedom and accelerating his timeline dramatically. Radical saving and frugality. With the 25x target established, Alex entered the phase of radical saving. He adopted a high savings rate, aiming for 60% of his after-tax income. This wasn't about suffering, but about strategic optimization. He moved out of his expensive city apartment and into a smaller, shared space, slashing his largest expense instantly. He learned to cook, packing lunches and avoiding the $15 daily restaurant habit. He canceled unused subscriptions and started tracking every dollar with obsessive precision, viewing his bank account not as a reservoir of ready cash, but as ammunition for his investment engine. The initial cuts were difficult, requiring constant vigilance and a shift in social habits, but the velocity of his savings growth quickly became addictive. He celebrated every $1,000 milestone, transforming the pain of denial into the pleasure of progress. Friends questioned his lifestyle, labeling him cheap, but Alex didn't care. They were looking at his short-term inputs, while he was focused on his long-term output, decades of freedom. His focus was fixed on avoiding lifestyle creep, the insidious habit of letting spending rise with income. Instead, every raise, every bonus, went directly into his investment accounts. This period of intense frugality was the steepest part of the climb, establishing the discipline required to fund the most critical component of the FIRE strategy, the investment portfolio. The investment engine. Saving money was only half the equation. The real magic lay in compounding returns. Alex understood that money sitting in a low-interest savings account was essentially losing purchasing power to inflation. He needed his money to work for him. He committed to a simple, low-cost investment strategy, primarily focusing on broad market index funds and ETFs. This hands-off approach removed the need to constantly monitor stocks or try to time the market, which he knew was a fool's errand. The process was automated. A fixed percentage of his paycheck was automatically swept into his brokerage accounts the moment it hit his bank account. This pay-yourself-first mechanism ensured consistency and minimized the temptation to spend. He learned about dollar-cost averaging, investing regularly regardless of market fluctuations, which smoothed out risk over time. The growth was slow at first, almost invisible, but as his principal grew, the monthly gains started to exceed his monthly savings. This was the moment of revelation. The investment engine, fueled by his frugality, had begun to generate its own momentum. He was no longer trading hours for dollars. He was trading time for freedom, watching his net worth grow on weekends while he was away hiking, confirming the true, powerful leverage of passive income generation. Income hacking and acceleration. After maximizing his savings, Alex realized the only way to accelerate his timeline was to attack the income side of the equation. Cutting expenses could only go so far, but income had potentially unlimited growth. This initiated the phase of income hacking. He successfully negotiated a higher salary at his existing job by leveraging his improved professional skills and his newfound financial confidence, a confidence that came from knowing he could walk away if necessary. Simultaneously, he started a simple side hustle based on a skill he enjoyed: designing minimalist websites for small businesses. The initial income was modest, but it was extra capital that went 100% toward investing. This side income was crucial because it bypassed the budget entirely, acting as pure, unencumbered fuel for his FIRE number. The combination of a high savings rate, 60%, and the extra side income meant his investment portfolio was growing at an exponential pace. He had essentially built a two-stage rocket. Stage 1 was radical savings, and Stage 2 was optimized income generation. His calculated retirement date shrunk from 65 to 42, then to 38. The finish line was now clearly visible, transforming the grind into a focused, temporary sprint, validating the effort and proving that the strategy was far more potent than he had originally imagined. The final countdown. The final year was a surreal mix of excitement and anxiety. Alex tracked his portfolio daily, watching the line creep toward the multi-million-dollar target. He felt a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing he had defied societal expectations and rewritten his own future. As his net worth reached 90% of the FIRE number, he began the mental transition. The job that had once felt like a prison now felt strangely insignificant, a game he was about to quit. He drafted his resignation letter, a document he had daydreamed about for years, focusing on gratitude and professionalism rather than bitterness. He also prepared his decumulation plan, organizing his investment accounts to ensure smooth, tax-efficient withdrawals using the 4% rule. The moment the portfolio officially crossed the threshold, the feeling wasn't explosive elation, but a quiet, profound peace. He was financially independent. The final 2 weeks at the office were a blur of training his replacement and clearing his desk. On his final day, he didn't join the farewell lunch. Instead, he took a long walk during what used to be his commute, breathing in the unhurried air. He had traded years of consumerism for decades of choice. The next chapter of his life, entirely self-directed and unconstrained, was finally beginning. Life after the office. Early retirement didn't mean idleness for Alex, it meant purpose. The fear he had once harbored, that he would be bored, vanished instantly. He spent the first few months simply existing, reading, walking, and reconnecting with neglected hobbies. He dedicated time to volunteering at a local community garden, something he never had the energy for when working 60-hour weeks. The pressure of time was gone, replaced by an expansive, open horizon. He continued his website design side hustle, not because he needed the income, but because he genuinely enjoyed the creative outlet and the low-stakes connection it provided. The income he earned became fun money, insulating his core portfolio and making the 4% withdrawal rate even safer. He found that true wealth was measured not in accumulated assets, but in the autonomous control of his daily schedule. He traveled extensively, often taking slow, extended trips that would have been impossible with standard 2-week vacation limits. His life was simpler, richer, and more aligned with his values. He had traded the anxiety of the safe path for the serenity of the self-designed life. The FIRE movement, he concluded, wasn't a financial strategy. It was an exercise in intentionality, a powerful tool for sculpting a life defined by freedom, not obligation.